Chapter 121, Chapter 121 Ring of Merlin. Comment: New York's Manhattan, on an abandoned subway corridor. The wings of an iron eagle fluttered as it steadily descended to the ground. Then, one after the other, a middle-aged man, a young man, and a child leapt from the iron eagle. It was Balthazar, David, and Jerry. "Follow me here." Jerry and Balthazar walked through the subway corridor behind Dave. They observed a sizable basement filled with diverse gear and equipment hidden behind a massive iron gate at a corner. "I've been experimenting physically with plasma. It is safer to conduct the experiment here because it is rather risky." Dave entered the basement, pushed the test apparatus aside, and explained. He was already able to collaborate with the professor on plasma experiments as a sophomore. Dave possesses a strong physics talent in addition to his magic ability. "By the way, this has been delayed until now, even though it was intended for you 10 years ago." Balthazar nodded with approval after scanning the entire basement, then reached into his pocket and handed Dave a book the size of a thumb. "Your book is here." "This book is really small," Dave said, staring at the handbook in Balthazar's hand, which was about the size of a thumb. After hearing this, Balthazar flipped the book, which soon quadrupled in size, doubled again, and grew far larger than a typical suitcase. The paper-thin book instantly inflated when he finally pressed it. Balthazar smiled as he placed the bulky wizard's book in Dave's hands and explained, "That's just for the convenience of carrying. All of Merlin's magic, as well as all of the Merlinians' magic, is contained in this book, along with any relevant art or history. Every apprentice has to have this book." He once more turned to face Jerry as he spoke. "You may also see it to see all the magic. You can learn it if you find it useful." "Thanks." Jerry appeared to be gazing at the thick magic book with two tiny suns in his eyes. He has only been in this world for a few hours, but he has more than 160 hours left, which is more than enough time for him to memorize all the magic in the original book. "You all need to take a step back for a while because I'm about to make the Ring of Merlin." Balthazar made his way to the central area of the basement, where he waved to Jerry and Dave and told them one by one to go. "What is the Ring of Merlin?" Dave asked with a hint of curiosity after moving to the lab's perimeter. Balthazar was poised to cast a spell as he stood in the middle. He paused when Dave asked a question and said, "This is our school's special supplemental learning magic. It can speed up the wizard's meditation in the Ring of Merlin and aid in faster learning and comprehension of magic. You simply need its auxiliary learning magic function. You have all of Merlin's magic strength when it comes to meditation. You don't need to spend a lot of time on it right now, you need to know how to do it. Nonetheless, Master Jerry can use it later." He then turned to face Jerry once more. "Master Jerry, what level are you at right now?" "How many levels?" "I have no idea how many levels there are. After my teacher died, I haven't tested it." "Jerry's level is unknown." "How does he know?" "There are no levels among wizards in the Harry Potter universe. The quantity of magic power a wizard possesses in their body is a mystery from birth. But remember that you can only control a certain amount of magic power when you're young. Your ability to control magic power will develop as you age. You can essentially control every magic power in your body once you turn 18. Later on, the key areas for improvement are magic control, magic research, and magic comprehension. A first-year wizard, for instance, can only release a little flame with the same amount of magic power, but Dumbledore can do the same with a large fire to clear the path. Although some adult wizards believe they possess far more magic power than other adult wizards, this is not necessarily the case. Rather, many of them have a greater magic power usage rate. But this universe is different. The concept of meditation exists in this universe. With consistent meditation, you can raise your magic power level. There is no maximum amount. The level of magic power, however, merely indicates the amount of magic power you have available. It does not demonstrate your strength. The power and control of magic determine the specific strength. "I'll carve the Ring of Merlin in a while, and I'll help you test your level," Balthazar said with a nod. After finishing his sentence, he opened his hands, closed his eyes, and started to create the Ring of Merlin. He observed that as Balthazar abruptly raised his hand, strong magic power erupted from his body. His body was the center of a circle that appeared quickly as a result of magic. Immediately afterward, a blue magic flame was ejected from the ring. The blue flames obeyed Balthazar's repeated hand motions and followed a predetermined magical trajectory as they started to cut circles with letters forming inside them. There are a total of 6 letters. Jerry can barely decipher the meanings of 3 of the letters: thinking, learning, and acceleration, and he is unsure of the meanings of the other 3. These letters are ancient runes, and 3rd grade Hogwarts courses include ancient ones. Jerry is just in the 1st grade currently, but he already has a good understanding of him because of his knowledge. A little ring surrounds the Ring of Merlin, which comprises 6 larger small rings arranged in a series. The wizard can experience rapid meditation and magic learning as long as he remains in the little ring in the center. Dave, come over and take a position in the center. Dave was stunned when Balthazar called him, allowed him to proceed to the center of the ring, and started the Merlinian acceptance ritual. Following the ritual, Dave was formally accepted as Balthazar's apprentice. Once the two left the Ring of Merlin, Jerry proceeded to the center to feel its effects. While it didn't come close to being his refreshing, it did appear to have the ability to speed up thinking. The Ring of Merlin can be useful even in the absence of red stars or when you are experiencing mental or physical tiredness. Thus, mastering it has certain advantages. Moreover, it has the ability to quicken the pace of meditation, which does not appear to be the case with refreshing. Chapter 122, Chapter 122 Meditation and Lightning Ball. Master Jerry, come over here so I can gauge your level for you. Balthazar waved to Jerry after the apprenticeship ceremony, who was standing in the Ring of Merlin. All right, Master Balthazar, just call me Jerry. As Jerry heard this, he smiled and approached. While Balthazar has been alive for more than 2,000 years, he is a genuine high-level wizard. According to his age, his past life and this life are combined, and he is just a younger brother. 1. Very well, then. Balthazar gave a nod. He previously named Master Jerry since Jerry is very strong and helped them, so he deserves of some respect. Just stand still. Balthazar touched Jerry's forehead with one hand as Jerry observed Balthazar chanting an unidentified spell, and a weak magical wave instantly flowed from his forehead to his entire body. Balthazar gently took back his hand and was shocked a moment later. Level 30, I didn't realize you were only 30, and a level 30 wizard killed a level 500 wizard. I haven't experienced anything like this in probably 2,000 years. The difference between level 500 and level 30 is too big, even though a wizard's level cannot accurately reflect strength. In the realm of wizards, a strength of level 500, such as Sunlock, is seen to be a high-level wizard, and it might not be feasible to create one for hundreds of years. A wizard of level 30 is considered an apprentice because their training in magic only lasted a few years. It is still a question of whether he can release the simplest fire spell. Level 30? Jerry was not at all discouraged after hearing Balthazar's evaluation, but rather excited. His level is currently only 30, which means that even though he has been learning magic for about a year, he will only be at level 100 or level 200 when he is an adult, and his level will soar to the top. As a result, when he masters the meditation practices in this world, his magic will get stronger and stronger. If things continue to progress in this manner, it might not be too long before the magic power within his body can be comparable to those of the adult wizards, perhaps even surpassing that of top wizards like Voldemort and Dumbledore. Alright, now step on the Ring of Merlin, open the book, and I'll begin to explain the most fundamental practices. Balthazar assessed Jerry's level before introducing the most fundamental meditation methods for wizards to learn. Each meditation technique has small nuances, but the fundamental idea is the same. Meditation is the most fundamental skill a magician can learn. What I'm about to teach you is how the Merlinians used it. Clean your mind of all distracting thoughts, put on your magic ring, concentrate as instructed in the book, and then begin to build up magic power. The idea behind meditation is to give your brain something to think about. Jerry rapidly reached the state after switching on refreshing as instructed by Balthazar. Jerry clearly noticed a little rise in the magic power in his body in accordance with the meditation technique described in the book. Although not significantly, it is indeed rising. He could use 1/10 of the magic power that existed in his body previously, and as he gets older, he will be able to use a larger pool of water. He now draws water from the outside world into this pool through meditation, which uses more water and causes the pool to grow. If this keeps happening, eventually his pool will turn into a small river, then a lake, and finally a sea. "I don't appear to be feeling anything," he raised his hand and said weakly after spending some time in meditation. Balthazar responded, "I don't think it's normal, because you inherited Merlin's magic power, and you already have a big magic power in your body similar to a level 1000 wizard. The only thing you need to do to benefit from meditation is to learn how to do it. For you, meditation is not the main concern. Learning all forms of magic, especially the lightning magic I created for Morgana, is most crucial for you right now." Jerry was successfully taught to meditate by Balthazar. He is aware that the Merlinian way of meditation is currently the most effective technique available and is unquestionably superior to Jerry's Hogwarts school. And for David, he had already inherited Merlin's powerful magic, so meditation could only increase his capacity to sense Merlin's magic. To beat Morgana, Dave must become proficient in magic, hone the magic skill he acquired from Merlin, and eventually match Merlin's level. By the way, these are plastic-covered leather shoes that can block electricity. In the future, try to wear leather shoes. Otherwise, if you receive an electric shock, the current will go through your body and out to the ground, causing nerve damage and temporarily immobilizing you. Balthazar pulled a pair of prepared leather shoes out of his suitcase and gave them to Dave. "Do you really have to wear leather shoes?" Dave scoffed as he inspected the old leather shoes. "Of course, wizards will die if they are unable to cast their magic," Balthazar replied. Dave pointed to Jerry beside him and said, "But Jerry didn't wear leather shoes either." Jerry turned to gaze at his feet. He was sporting some sneakers. Although wizards in Harry Potter have a strong capacity to manage magic and get their magical power from blood, there is no guarantee that they will still be able to do so if they are electrocuted. 3. Yeah, my teacher passed away before he told me about it. Also, I'm not shocked yet. Jerry, yours is equally important, and I'll get a pair ready for you tomorrow," Balthazar told Jerry. "Oh, okay, then. I greatly appreciate it." Jerry concurred with a smile. After seeing this, Dave was forced to put the leather shoes on his feet. "If you understand how meditation works, it'll be easy, and you'll gradually get used to it. The first magic I will teach you is called Lightning Ball, and it is the strongest lightning magic I have ever made based on the laws of physics and magic over the past 2000 years. 5. The attack speed is incredibly quick, and the power is also very good. It simply needs to be produced by combining your hands in this way. The enemy's magic power will be disturbed after being struck by the lightning ball, and they will soon lose their ability to cast magic. Keep in mind that this magic is the main one you will study going forward, Dave." As he approached Jerry and Dave, an impressive ionic light ball materialized between Balthazar's palms. Chapter 123, Chapter 123 Immortality. This blend of magic and science is to be expected from a wizard who has lived for more than 2000 years. Jerry secretly adored the lightning ball in Balthazar's hand. In previous life, only sci-fi movies had attacks of this type of magic, but today a wizard has invented them, and he admired them. The destructive force of a single attack has actually surpassed the destructive power of the majority of magic, even though there is a significant difference in power between this sort of magic and the lightning ball in science fiction movies. Several spells have amazing effects, but their destructive power isn't so great. It is comparable to the killing curse that will kill you, but if you block it with a stronger shield, it might not be able to penetrate it. The fact that this magic has so much potential is crucial. In the future, if Jerry is ready to devote more time to learning this magic, he might be able to create a magic that is superior to many attacks. For instance, at the movie's end, Dave created a beam or used magic bursts similar to a machine gun. One thrust with both hands joined produces an effect akin to a powerful ray. Of course, it is assumed that Jerry has enough magic power, Therefore, the wizard level still needs to be raised. Balthazar first demonstrated the workings of the lightning ball before going into great detail about the workings of magic, specific tactics, safety measures, etc. Jerry kept refreshing on the entire time, and when the power from the Ring of Merlin was paired with that, he worked hard to acquire the necessary magical knowledge. It is true that receiving one-on-one guidance from a teacher who can break down and explain a great deal of magic knowledge is better than reading books on your own. Jerry felt that he had already become familiar with the magic of the lightning ball in just 30 minutes. "I think we should eat something." When Dave checked at the time, it was already midnight. He hadn't had dinner since he got home and was being pursued, and his stomach was immediately rumbling with hunger. When Balthazar noticed this, a hint of regret could be seen on his face. "I apologize, but I haven't eaten in 10 years. I forgot you still need to eat right now." "Do wizards stop needing to eat once they reach a certain degree, Mr. Balthazar?" Jerry asked in surprise. Jerry refers to Balthazar as his teacher now that he is learning magic from him, just like Dave used to. You need to understand that meditation can not only raise a level but also subtly affects our bodies to a certain extent when we absorb external energy through it, Balthazar said as he nodded. 2. First and foremost, our vitality will continue to grow stronger, and the results will be a longer life. Also, once our body adjusts to the magic power, the operation of the entire body can be conducted entirely by the magic power, so whether we eat or drink water is not that crucial. Our bodies are stronger than those of regular people thanks to the high vitality, and as a result, we will have greater strength, speed, and resistance to blows. But, in order to live forever, one must typically refrain from consuming anything at all. Their level must at least be 300. Then, how many wizards in this world are able to live a long time? Jerry asked again. Increasing a wizard's level is not so simple. In other words, only a select few people have the potential to become wizards. After 100 or 200 years, many wizards might not be able to discover a disciple with magical talent. After becoming a wizard, very few wizards can meditate up to level 300, while most wizards stay around level 200. As far as I'm aware, fewer than 10 wizards can advance above level 300 in the world. Balthazar sighed. If it were so simple, we wouldn't live in an era where technology rules and common people control the globe. After hearing Balthazar's explanation, Jerry noticed a startling similarity between the wizard apprentices in this world and the cultivators he had heard in his former existence. The difference between wizards and those who cultivate immortality is that the former takes the world's energy and transforms it into mana. Immortal cultivators put in a lot of effort to practice, lay a foundation, and then pursue immortality. Besides using meditation to alter the body and lengthen life, wizards also cast various spells to clear the path and prevent incidents. Wizards must also learn all forms of magic in order to protect themselves, having the capacity to survive indefinitely and without food. This second world is not a loss because it essentially resolves the issue of his limited future lifespan. 3. Outside the subway, next to a burger joint. Following his meal and beverage, Jerry said goodbye to Balthazar and Dave and started to make his way to his hotel, which didn't exist. Balthazar spent the night at the lab with Dave while Jerry returned to the hotel, claiming that his suitcase and other belongings were there, and committed to return the following morning. Of course, the hotel doesn't exist. He was only looking for a location to interrogate Sunlock. With Balthazar in the lab, it was inconvenient for him to enter the suitcase. Repello Muggletum. Jerry quickly located a deserted alley, performed a muggle-repelling charm, and leapt into the suitcase after leaving Balthazar and Dave. Sunlock was still asleep and confined by Jerry's rope charm inside the luggage at this point. He was still under the influence of the sleeping charm. Evidently, Sunlock's magic power was much weaker than Horvath's, and he was unable to remove Jerry's sleeping curse with his own magic. After removing a little bench from the space, he sat down in front of Sunlock. Jerry broke the sleeping spell by waving his magic wand. Sunlock awoke slowly, observed the rope around his torso and the wristband that was missing, and looked at his surroundings. He was aware of his situation at this point. "Are there any other languages you speak besides Cantonese?" Jerry communicated in Mandarin. Sunlock surprisedly sent a surprised glance, not expecting him to be able to speak Chinese at such a young age, no doubt. As a wizard, I am fluent in the majority of tongues from other nations, including several dialects. Sunlock is an experienced wizard who has been immortal for a very long time. He is not as old as Balthazar but can cultivate to level 500. I had originally intended to kill you. I'll give you a chance because you still have an impact on me. We'll work out a deal. I can set you free once the deal is over. Jerry kept his speech to a minimum and made his point clear. He has no more than a week to live in this world. He needs a tutor who can lead him as he learns magic in this world year-round because after returning to the main world, he must learn all magic on his own. Chapter 124, Chapter 124 Morganian Wizard Book. There is a distinction between Sunlock under the Imperious Curse and the regular Sunlock, despite the fact that he has the Imperious Curse to control him. He can use the Imperious Curse to make Sunlock reveal his secrets and to make him do some things, but he wants to make Sunlock his puppet so he can instruct him on how to learn magic, correct him when he makes mistakes and converses with him about magic, among other things. One is the ongoing use of the Imperious Curse. To maintain control over Sunlock, he must keep using the wand to cast the Imperious Curse, which drains mana and slows time. The Imperious Curse cannot be applied to a target again, which is the second limitation. The target will develop resistance if applied repeatedly, significantly lowering the Imperious Curse's success rate. 1. In order to get Sunlock to give himself heartfelt magic tutoring, he planned to use his life and freedom as payment. Sunlock gave Jerry a long look before responding, "Okay then." Sunlock woke up knowing his situation right away. Without the ability to perform magic, he is essentially just like any other person. He is powerless against this incredibly cunning young wizard. As he has attained immortality and definitely does not want to pass away in this manner, he will undoubtedly follow Jerry's instructions. You stay here for 10 years, and throughout that time, you'll do your best to assist me while I learn magic. I'll return your freedom to you in 10 years. How about that? Jerry presented the requirements he had long thought about after observing Sunlock's firm response and realizing that he was not a one-sided person. Killing Sunlock is just a total waste. 10 years are sufficient for him to master all the magic in this world. Okay, I hope you can keep your promise. For Sunlock, who has already attained immortality, 10 years is not a very long time. He hopes that this young magician will honor his word and set him free 10 years from now. Don't worry. Even if I'm a bad person, I still stick to what I say. But just in case, I believe I still want you to apply my techniques. 1. What I want to say is, don't try to lie to me. I will routinely use this magic to test your thoughts, and if you dare to purposefully make mistakes in teaching magic, I will kill you immediately. Okay, enough talk. Where is your wizard book made by Morgana? Seeing that Sunlock was about to lose his temper, Jerry was not joking, but asked the important point. He had to dedicate time to memorizing everything in the Merlinian wizard book because he was unable to take it from Dave. But obtaining the Morganian wizard book would be excellent. In fact, Jerry is also keenly interested in some of the Morganian's magic. For instance, the magic that may transform the creatures in the painting into actual objects, shatter the disillusionment charm, and the shield Horvath deployed are all great magic. Sunlock did not conceal his answer when he heard Jerry ask the question since he understood that doing so would be useless. I don't have the Morganian book in my hands. More than a century ago, Balthazar took me and sealed me. It should now be in the hands of this Morganian generation. Then, are you able to memorize every spell in the entire book? Jerry did not find Sunlock's response surprising. After all, despite searching Sunlock after defeating him, he was unable to locate the book. Sunlock shook his head and said, "Impossible, the book contains a variety of magic made by wizards from other eras. There are infinite numbers, and no wizard could learn them all. We all choose the most appropriate magic to learn and practice based on our individual preferences and talents. At most, we will subsequently add our own comprehension to develop and strengthen it. Just like I excel at using fire magic and transmutation magic. Horvath's specialties are the magic forms of air magic, metamorphosis, and reality bending. Sunlock's explanation helped Jerry to understand the situation. In this world, wizards began by studying magic and then devoted the majority of their time to practicing meditation because this is the only way to become immortal. He didn't have as much time as he had anticipated to study and acquire a great deal of magic. Most wizards spend too much time researching magic and tend to specialize in one or two sorts of magic. Although magic has powerful combat abilities, they will eventually pass away from old age. This contributes to the fact that many wizards lack significant fighting skills until reaching level 300. The most recent Morganian generation, Jerry started to remember specifics from the movie as he dug around in his memory once more. He soon knew the response in his heart. The most recent Morganian, Drakestone, utilizes magic tricks to perform magic every day to make money, as Drakestone is not the most well-known magician in New York. It appears that I'll stay up late once more tonight. Time was running out, so Jerry sighed and decided to find that person tonight. Chapter 125, Chapter 125 Returning to the main world. Unexpectedly, Drakestone's location was easy to locate. Jerry didn't need to use any magic to get this person's present address in New York. He utilized the cell phone he had earlier stolen and performed an internet search. He is unsure if this is because he lacks practical battle experience or because he is living in excess comfort. This man did not reply at all when Jerry approached his bedside as if he were sound asleep. Jerry escorted this man to the home's safe and pulled out the dust-covered Morganian wizard book after casting an imperious curse. Jerry didn't do anything to him after receiving the book. Instead, he used the sleeping charm, stole his magic ring, and then quietly left. Drakestone, the latest generation of Morganian wizards, is not a bad person. His master passed away when he was 15, leaving him to pursue magic on his own. Later, he realized that things had changed and that a lot of little magic was all he needed to lead a comfortable life as a magician. Thankfully, he focused on being rich and enjoying life. Because of his little talent and lack of a teacher to provide ongoing guidance, the likelihood of him achieving level 300 is incredibly low. It is preferable to utilize magic to become wealthy and well-known. Simply put, once someone has money, they tend to turn wicked, especially if they have magic powers. Therefore, it is certain that they will engage in some unethical behavior behind closed doors. In the movie, Horvath would not have assisted in stealing the Grimhold if he hadn't shown up at the door. In the end, Horvath used magic to drain his magic strength and perished. He picked up the book on the Morganian wizard around 2 in the morning. Jerry entered the suitcase again after locating a lonely alley near Dave's lab. All wizards in this world, except Merlin and Morgana, must release magic through a medium, yet their bodies are stronger than those of regular humans. Thus, after coming to an agreement with Sunlock, he stopped placing restrictions on Sunlock's movement, allowing Sunlock to move around and normally live inside the suitcase. In the suitcase are a backyard and a small villa. The villa is furnished with a wide variety of items. In contrast to the Matryoshka doll where he was before sealed, it is much more comfortable here. Jerry woke early the following morning, rested well, and went to Dave's lab. The following day, Jerry stayed in the lab with Dave to learn magic and meditate, and at night, he went outside to the suitcase to study magic with Sunlock. Jerry discovered that he will never again need to sleep. Since he began to meditate, he has learned that it is possible to substitute sleep with meditation, and the results are far superior to his deep sleep. He spends his time this week learning magic, practicing magic, and recharging the weariness brought on by refreshing by meditating. However, the usage of red stars was a little bit more than usual. Thankfully, he assisted in the sealing of Horvath and helped stop Morgana from being resurrected beforehand, which was also a good deed, earning him more than 10,000 red stars. Overall, the number of red stars did not only not decrease during the week he joined the second world, but even slightly increased. The only thing he regrets is that, after a week of learning magic, he discovered that, in this world, He already knew how to use Hogwarts magic to use whether that be either Morganian or Merlinian magic. While many of them are unleashed with effects that are comparable to those of some Hogwarts magic spells, they are not practical to use. For instance, the Hogwarts Transfiguration charm can entirely replace the magic known as the rabbit summoning spell in this world, which can summon a rabbit out of thin air. Jerry is already pretty satisfied, since he has already got a lot of benefits using just one meditation technique, and also because he believes that magic in general is simpler to employ. "Jerry, you must come to New York to play again later." Dave and Jerry exchanged farewells in the subway. After getting together for a week, Jerry regularly assists Dave, who doesn't know anything, because he rapidly picks up magic. Dave continues to think highly of Jerry. Jerry smiled and replied, "Yeah. It will take 4 to 5 months if there are no incidents. As soon as my business is taken care of, I will return and continue to study magic." While your magic is already quite good, your level of strength is too low. Improve your meditation techniques. When you attain level 300 as soon as possible, you can study magic with confidence because magic is the foundation. Balthazar reminded Jerry. He has recently witnessed Jerry's impressive magical abilities. Nonetheless, Jerry can very effectively release all the magic he taught within a few days, even if the power is not as strong as his. Jerry often taught himself magic using the magic book, even when he didn't teach it. Still, he occasionally came to him for advice. Also, this helped him fully comprehend how Jerry learned so many different magics at such a young age. He indeed has a little bit of an unorthodox learning style. At times, he even had the impression that his teacher, Merlin, who was his age, did not have Jerry's aptitude for learning magic. He has been guiding Dave for a week now and still doesn't know how to employ the lightning ball in the most basic manner. He was unaware that Jerry's magical abilities were actually only average and that the only reasons he was able to accomplish this feat were via hard work and the effective use of refreshing. Dave sees magic as a hobby, and he must devote some of his days to finishing his studies and pursuing the girl he had a crush on, while Jerry sees magic as the center of his existence. This week, he employed meditation rather than even a single minute of sleep. One is interest and the other is survival. Dave cannot defeat Jerry, even if his magic skills are equal to Merlin's. "I understood." Jerry nodded respectfully. 1. The degree of magic strength and its ability to last eternally is determined by meditation. He obviously places a lot of value on it, but he doesn't express it particularly. Balthazar will now discover that Jerry's magician level is no longer level 30 if he performs another test to determine his level. Jerry exited the basement laboratory after bidding farewell to Balthazar and Dave, found an empty alley, opened the panel, and pressed the exit button. He eventually emerged from his trance and found himself back in the main world, in his home city of New York. He jumped into the suitcase after opening it as he spotted Sunlock at the villa. A smile formed at the corner of his mouth. 1. It appears that bringing people from the parallel world into the main world is actually feasible. Chapter 126, Chapter 126 Entering a Big Villa. Half a month after returning to the main world. As they traveled down the road, Haas was being encouraged by Belle, who was in the passenger seat. "Relax, all my father wants to do is meet you and the kids. It's all right. He didn't protest when I told him about our relationship." Haas exhaled with relief and said to Aisha behind him, "Aisha, you must listen to your brother and don't be naughty, you understand?" Haas didn't worry about anything for Jerry. The only thing on his mind is his beloved daughter Aisha. Yet he believed that it wasn't a big deal now that Jerry was here. At this point, Aisha, who was dressed like a young princess, stayed silent. Her head rested on Jerry's lap as she dozed off sweetly on his lap. She hadn't slept at all because she had been woken up too early in the morning to get ready. In response to Haas, Jerry halted his meditation practice, opened his eyes, and spoke, "Don't worry, leave Aisha to me." Belle naturally told her father about her relationship with Haas because it turned out that after 6 months of getting along, they already had plans to get married. 2. After learning that Belle's partner is a police officer with 2 kids, Belle's father did not oppose, but he stated that he wanted to meet first. Jerry is also overjoyed that Haas, who has been a widower father for almost 10 years, will soon have a wife. Yet, he gave himself some more thought. For some reason, he felt a little more alone in his heart. The time to consider these issues is not now. Instead, strengthening his power should be the first priority. If his strength is insufficient, everything he has will be reduced to atoms when the threat appears. Jerry likes to imagine the worst-case scenario, whether in the current life or the previous one, and then prepare as much as he can. He put a lot of effort into earning money in his former life in order to save up for a home, a car, and other wedding-related expenses before finding a spouse. Something caused it to become messed up in that way. In this life, the same is true. He thinks that once he can handle any crisis, he will consider falling in love, getting married, and starting a family. He can only feel at ease in this situation. Jerry occasionally felt his heart pound and wondered if his body had reached puberty in this incarnation. When he first saw a gorgeous woman, he would look twice as long, but it was only a basic sense of beauty, and he didn't have any fancy notions. But today, clearly, something has changed. He determined that he ought to have gone through puberty as a result. 3. His physical age can be determined to be 12.5 years old when everything is taken into account, including the time spent in the Harry Potter world. Puberty is also common at the age of 12 or 13. Knowing that he had gone through puberty before, he had a profound grasp of the process. He has done a lot of embarrassing things in his prior life as a teenager, after all. 5. Jerry shifted his body to the side while giving it some thought, then picked up Aisha's head and set it down on the backseat's pillow. All of his desires and nagging thoughts vanished as soon as he calmly resumed his meditation practice. What kind of business does your father have that allows him to live in such a big villa, Belle? Haas followed Belle's instructions and drove to a massive villa, where he asked his question. In embarrassment, Belle stroked her hair. I don't know much about the specifics. I know he appears to supply materials to Hammer Industries and Stark Industries. He seems to be primarily involved in the business of materials. I know how much my father loves me, so he won't try to make things difficult for you. 1. Stark Industries? Hammer Industries? Haas swallowed uncontrollably. He was aware that Belle's family was wealthy and involved in business, but he didn't feel cowardly. After all, he also serves as the police station's sheriff and has some background in the business world. He believes that as a small business owner, he ought to be able to handle it. 1. However, businessmen who can supply materials to Stark and Hammer Industries are not ordinary businessmen. In fact, they have a lot of connections to powerful people in the government. In the eyes of others, he is probably just a small fish. Belle's encouraging glances encouraged Haas, but he continued to act unconcerned and rubbed his chest while saying, "It's okay. I believe I can get along well with your father." Although Mrs. Belle comes from a very respectable family, why is she still teaching in a primary school when she is so wealthy? 2. When he heard that they had arrived, Jerry, who was seated in the back, once more awoke from his meditation state. He wasn't as astonished about Belle's family history as Haas was. No matter how strong Belle's family was, Haas unquestionably deserved her, in his opinion. 2 bodyguards in suits and sunglasses quickly approached the villa's gate as they rolled up. They relaxed their guard when they noticed Mrs. Belle seated in the car and spoke briefly into the microphone tucked away beneath the suit. According to Belle's instruction, the gate opened, and Haas parked the car in the villa's underground garage. Haas is a little taken aback by the variety of expensive vehicles on display, the Audi R8, Lamborghini, Cadillac, BMW series, and other exotics, but the one that Belle drives is the least. Chapter 127, Chapter 127 Meeting with the Father-in-Law. Jerry raised his hand, cast a spell, and tossed it towards Aisha, who was still sleeping, after noticing that Haas had parked the car. The reviving charm may instantly wake up people, regardless of how much sleep they have had, and they won't feel sleepy for a short while after using it. It is not merely a counter for the sleeping charm. Giving yourself a reviving spell is a smart move if you fall asleep in class. But if you keep using the reviving charm on someone, there's a chance they'll have trouble falling asleep for days and pass away unexpectedly. 2. Aisha's awakening has never been an easy affair. After all, it is highly problematic for kids, and this reviving spell can effectively resolve the issue. The enchantment allowed Aisha to wake up so early today. Jerry is currently donning the magical bracelet. He can now use magic without a wand, making it more covert and practical. He intends to wear the bracelet when not acting as a wizard, and to swap it out for his wand if that happens. If not, he would pose as a wizard while holding the wristband. In the event that something happens, he might not be able to keep it a secret from S.H.I.E.L.D. Under my power, destroy. Ha ha ha. In her dream, Aisha was riding a broom, wielding a magic wand, casting spells that would destroy the world, and engaging in battle with her two sisters against countless demons when she felt an evil attack coming from the bottom of the abyss. She immediately felt as though her crown had fallen, the broom had been broken, the strong magic power had slowly faded away, and her spirit had started to trance. When she awoke once more, everything vanished, the dream was over, and she was back in the car. Wake up, Aisha, it's time. We should leave the car now that we are here. Jerry greeted Aisha as soon as he saw her dejected expression and promptly opened the car door. Aisha unwillingly stepped out of the car after giving Jerry a final glance. She had a persistent sense that something was off. The four of them entered the elevator and soon arrived on the first floor of the exquisite villa. Master is waiting for you in the living room, Miss Bell. 2. An elderly butler who had long since heard the news from the bodyguards was already waiting for the four of them at the elevator entrance. The four of them took the old butler's directions as they made their way through the area before arriving at the villa's living room. Aside from a few bodyguards who were present at the time, there was also an elderly man in the living room with half-balding hair who occasionally flashed sly eyes. One can observe a man in a suit who looked to be in his mid-50s. He accidentally displayed a hint of contempt on his face when he turned to face Haas, but he immediately covered it up. Bell, it's been 5 or 6 days since you last visited me. If you have nothing to do, why can't you go home and spend more time with me? The old man immediately stood up with a full face of adoration at seeing Bell. Dad, don't I usually have to go to teach? And you are so far away from the school. Running back and forth is too time-consuming. Bell started introducing the others. Dad, this is the Haas I told you about last week, and this is Jerry and Aisha. 4. Haas, this is my father, Chuck Pizarro. 1. Nice to meet you, Mr. Pizarro. Haas hurried forward a little cautiously and extended his hand in salutation. Haas and Pizarro clasped hands as Pizarro grinned. Yes, Haas. Don't be nervous. Come and sit down. Who is this fellow, father? At this point, Bell pointed to the man in a suit seated on the sofa to the left. This is Mr. Justin Hammer from Hammer Industries, who is young and promising and also a very significant partner of the group. Today, because he had some issues about collaboration, he came here to chat with me, and we just so happened to be together, Pizarro said with a smile. 1. Hammer got up very genteelly and shook hands with Bell with a smile on his face, saying, Hello, Miss Bell. I have long heard that Miss Bell is gorgeous, and she really comes up to her reputation. He shook hands and then turned to face Haas once more. Haas quickly stood up and prepared to extend his hand, but Mr. Hammer directly ignored him, withdrew his hand, and prepared to sit back down. This Hammer guy obviously didn't take Haas at all seriously. It appears that today's meeting is much more complicated than Mrs. Bell had anticipated. Since entering the hallway with the refreshing on, Jerry, whose 5 senses are incredibly sharpened, has been keenly analyzing everyone's faces and demeanor, and soon he found some hints. Clearly, Bell's father wasn't as eager to meet Haas as Bell claimed, and Justin Hammer most likely came to this location for some reason. If that were the case, he wouldn't have immediately felt disgusted at Haas. In any case, a significant partner's son-in-law should get along well. He obviously knew Haas, believed that they were not on the same level, and did not think that Haas could marry Pizarro. Jerry even caught a glimpse of some of his plans for Bell through Hammer. Jerry casually snapped his fingers on his right hand while wearing the wristband. Jerry had already made a rough guess. 1. Ouch. He noticed that Hammer was ready to take a seat, but the sofa beneath him mysteriously slid back a short distance before he could react. He then fell down on the floor. In the universe of The Sorcerer's Apprentice, wizards most frequently employ the power of mind control. You can use your thoughts to control any being or thing everywhere you look. Those with more energy within are more challenging to control. The wizard's proficiency with this magic determines the degree of mind control. Jerry just mentally directed this magic to move the sofa beneath Hammer's but a short distance. The magic of the Sorcerer's Apprentice world shares many similarities with the magic in the Harry Potter world, but it also has some unique elements. For instance, although the impact of this mind control is comparable to that of the levitation charm, there is no need to chant the spell, and there is no obvious magic light. It is extremely challenging to protect against because it can be discharged with just a snap of the fingers. If Hammer caused any trouble with Haas like now, Jerry wouldn't hold back. Chapter 128, Chapter 128 He's not a fool. Mr. Hammer, are you alright? Everyone unconsciously voiced alarm when they saw Hammer fall to the floor. Pizarro couldn't resist scowling at him. He brought Hammer here today to try and put the two of them together. Why did he act so carelessly when he initially approached her daughter? Is this a joke? In reality, how could he genuinely consent to marry his beautiful, lovely daughter to a police officer with two small kids? Pizarro is aware of his daughter's temper, but once a decision has been taken, it can be impossible to change, and doing so will only make things worse. The same as when he wanted Belle to lead his business empire. She insisted on becoming a primary school teacher instead of running it. As a result, she moved out of the villa and started to live alone outside when the father and daughter got into a heated argument. In the end, she made a concession and agreed to visit him every 2 to 3 weeks. He was worried that if he opposed this time explicitly, his daughter might wed the policeman immediately away and then return to visit him after she had kids. Hence, he initially consented but later discovered the executive director of Hammer Industry, who was roughly the same age as the policeman but thousands of times superior in every way. 5. The goal is for the daughter to clearly see the difference between the two before she makes a decision. In terms of military equipment, Hammer Industries currently controls the whole nation, and there are indicators that it may soon exceed Stark Industries. 2. The important thing to remember is that Hammer is still single right now and has less of a negative reputation than Tony Stark from Stark Industries. I just slipped my foot, I said, it's okay, it's okay. In humiliation, Hammer got up, patted his buttocks, and then sat back down. Of course, despite Belle's beauty, Hammer is highly intrigued by Pizarro's daughter. Despite his wealth and prestige, he can't seem to find any attractive women. He doesn't have the same level of notoriety as Tony. He is drawn to Belle because Pizarro has a vast business empire that is superior to his own. The Stark industry has long repressed his Hammer industry. They never build weapons that are as potent as those Tony has created and invented. The world will soon learn that their remote-controlled robots from Hammer Industries are significantly more potent than Tony's armor now that he had finally located Ivan Vanko, a brilliant scientist who can rival Tony. 1. He will be able to obtain orders from the military like hotcakes as long as this fair is successful. Becoming Pizarro's son-in-law implies that the raw materials for these orders will no longer be an issue. He was able to merge the two commercial empires after Pizarro's passing, and he completely crushed Stark Industries. Jerry, that uncle seems so foolish that he is unable to even sit on the sofa. Aisha couldn't stop laughing as she noticed Hammer fell on the floor. Jerry listened to the statements and said with a serious expression, Aisha, don't be like that. I've already said we shouldn't make fun of people with flaws. We need to be compassionate. 1. They were all seated so close together on the sofa that they could all hear Aisha and Jerry even if their voices weren't very loud. Jerry, Aisha, stop talking like that. Mr. Hammer is not a stupid individual. Haas swiftly stared at Jerry and Aisha at this point. 1. Jerry immediately displayed shock, but he continued to give Hammer a somewhat baffling expression. Hammer was immediately quite upset by this, but since Jerry and Aisha are still young children, he doesn't really care about the current circumstances. Otherwise, Belle, who loves kids, would view it as a major setback. At this time, Belle also giggled. No matter how old their children are, in their dad's eyes, they are still children. They constantly get the impression that their kids are still young, and they need to help them understand where they're going in life. Pizarro in particular has grown accustomed to making all decisions on his own. He believes that his strategy worked and that his beloved baby girl will undoubtedly follow a more appropriate path and have a brighter future under his plan. 1. Everyone is aware that he genuinely knows Belle more intimately than he does. Belle felt a tinge of expectation as she watched Hammer appear. She disregarded Haas after seeing Hammer shake her hand and realized that things were going nicely. 6. That's why she was so ecstatic when she noticed that Jerry appeared to be intentionally making fun of Hammer. After some awkward introductions from both parties, Pizarro initiated the conversation by speaking first. It's just that Pizarro's topic had nothing to do with Haas in the slightest. He didn't inquire about Haas's occupation, salary, future goals, or other typical queries. He continued to bring up the subject to Hammer instead. Naturally, Hammer exuded confidence as he talked about the significant deals he had struck with various generals in the military, which congressmen he had dinner with at a posh restaurant, and so forth. The acquaintances he makes are all prominent figures in the political and military spheres, which is obviously the point in order to demonstrate how wealthy and socially connected he is. Compared with this, Haas is nothing. Jerry placed his hand under the coffee table and cast a tickle spell as soon as he noticed Hammer speaking passionately. I think Hammer Industries will be able to advance further and surpass Stark Industries to become the most powerful military enterprise by the end of the expo I host in Queens next week. Tony Stark is nothing more than a clown, ah ha 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 ho. Hammer spoke for a moment, then abruptly started laughing. Pizarro nodded and grinned in agreement with Hammer's remarks, so it is clear that he did as well. But after laughing for a moment, he quickly recognized that something was wrong since Hammer never stopped laughing. The more he laughed, the happier and louder he grew. The whole atmosphere became awkward. Ahem, Mr. Hammer. Pizarro reminded him while pretending to cough. Ha 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 ha. I don't know why, but I just feel so funny, Hammer said. Jerry, can you not see what I mean? Aisha turned to face Hammer, who had been laughing for 5 minutes. Don't be like that, Jerry said. Haas couldn't do anything. Belle dipped her head and covered her mouth and Pizarro's mouth twitched. He believed that choosing to find Hammer today was an utter mistake. 1. Chapter 129, Chapter 129 Invitation to the Expo. In wizard duels, using the tickle spell to divert the opponent's attention by making them pass out from laughter is common. Under Jerry's spell at this point, Hammer stood in the living room with his head held high and laughed for 15 minutes. He laughed till he passed out on the couch, then stopped and returned to being himself. He was shocked to see everyone's faces, including Pizarro's, when he regained consciousness. Actually, this is just a misunderstanding. I don't typically laugh in this way. Mr. Hammer, I believe you should go if you don't have anything to do. I still need to take care of a few personal issues here. Hammer was addressed after Pizarro gave him a half smile and a nod. He came here because he genuinely believed Hammer was excellent and deserving of his daughter, but given Hammer's recent behavior, he began to worry that he might be psychologically unstable. 1. He doesn't think highly of this Haas in terms of class, aptitude, or familial circumstances, but at least he acts normally. Pizarro has enough money. All he wants is for his daughter to find a better man. Hammer isn't nearly as good as Haas if he has mental health issues. 1. Pizarro's attitude had changed, and Jerry nodded happily to himself. He is aware of the fact that there cannot be a gap without comparison. Pizarro cannot make Haas ideal in his eyes, but he can make Hammer worse. As long as Jerry is willing, he can use spells like dancing, disorientation, and hair loss to transform Hammer in Pizarro's eyes utterly. In truth, Pizarro wouldn't have given the go-ahead for their relationship until after everything he does to improve Haas. He would deploy unconventional techniques like the Imperious Curse and the False Memory Curse. Well, since that is the case, although I won't trouble you too much, I still hope Mr. Pizarro will be able to attend the new product display I will have in Queens on Sunday. Hammer didn't say anything. Instead, he placed the invitation letter he had made on the coffee table, aware that his dumb actions earlier had diminished Pizarro's affection for him to an unworthy level. He thought Pizarro would undoubtedly change his mind the moment he saw the potent robot made by Hammer Industries at the expo the following week. As for Haas, he never paid much attention to it. As for Belle, a simple woman in her 20s, there are not too many ways to deal with her. Pizarro initially intended to decline but changed his mind since he believed that everyone from all spheres of society must attend Hammer's exhibition. All right, I'll come. Nonetheless, I'll give my daughter's blessing to date this Officer Haas and his 2 kids. 2. Hammer looked at Haas with a serious expression on his face, smiled, and remarked, "That is obviously not an issue. I'll leave because I have to accomplish something." Following his words, Hammer turned around impeccably and moved with his bodyguards in the direction of the basement garage. Oops. The handcrafted, high-end crocodile belt around his waist unexpectedly broke as he was ready to leave the room, causing his trousers to drop off and trip him quickly. Pizarro saw this and shook his head helplessly. He couldn't comprehend why he believed such an unworthy person would be perfect for his daughter. Jerry silently withdrew his right hand from the sofa. Jerry waved his hand and cast a magic spell to punish him a little bit because it turned out that he could clearly sense the hatred that Hammer emanated when he looked at Haas. He has spent so much time practicing that he can still use the Sectum Sempra to chop off Hammer's belt at a distance precisely. Hammer may have failed to perform well, or he may have sensed that Belle's expression was off. After Hammer left, Pizarro treated Haas, Jerry, and Aisha with much greater intent. A specialist French chef prepares a table of French cuisine for dinner, which is served at the villa. The meeting came to an official close after dinner. Hash arrived home at 9 o'clock that evening and appeared a little dejected. Pizarro didn't make it very clear during this meeting. Haas was clearly aware of Pizarro's displeasure with him. "You don't need to worry about anything, Hash. I sincerely hope I can get my father's approval. But even if I can't, I still won't change my mind since I will always love you." As Belle noticed Haas's anxiety, she went to him and softly reassured him by holding his head in her hands. She has a reputation for having a very good emotions, despite being an elementary school teacher. She may appear weak on the outside, but in actuality, she has always been a strong character with her own beliefs. 1. She demonstrated her bravery by offering to be taken as a hostage when the robbers commandeered the school bus. There are instances when people who appear to be tough, sarcastic, and uncaring are actually quite frail on the inside. Yet occasionally, the feeling is quite positive and soft, and those who smile at everything are actually very resilient on the inside. The choices Belle made were all for her own benefit because she was aware of how much her father loved her. However, the decisions your parents make for you aren't always the best ones. Because no matter how poor a decision you make, you will be responsible for the results, and anyone who decides for you, even with the best of intentions, cannot be held responsible for the results. Haas was surprised by Belle's consolation, then he took a big breath and eloquently uttered, "I don't like to give up easily. I'll make an effort to win your father's approval because I also love you." In his capacity as police chief, Haas had no fear whatsoever while confronting bandits brandishing powerful weapons, but he trembled like a child when facing Belle's father. He truly did fall head over heels in love with Belle. When someone truly cares about you, he will be very worried about how your parents perceive him and even be willing to put up with some minor inconveniences because he loves you. Haas? Belle looked into Hash's eyes and kissed him affectionately. "Oh, come on." Jerry was eating melons on the sofa and hastily covered Aisha's eyes with his hands as he took her back to the room while 2 adults whose hormones were about to explode. Jerry had a dumbfounded expression on his face. Chapter 130 Chapter 130 Dragon Transformation Spell. It appears that in the future, I will find a way to install soundproofing materials at home. 2. Jerry could hear the living room's progressively loud panting. A sleeping charm was used on Aisha. As soon as he placed her on the bed and covered her with a blanket, he leapt into his suitcase. Jerry recently chose to learn and absorb the magic of the Morganians and Merlinians rather than go out and earn red stars, and he focused on practicing meditation. He even intends to teach meditation to Haas, Aisha, and Belle, even though they might not be able to pass level 300. If they can learn meditation, at least they can live longer. 4. Sunlock informed him, however, that not everyone is able to study meditation. Otherwise, there would not be as few wizards. You must have wizard blood to learn magic. Even if the world of the Sorcerer's Apprentice is not like the world of Harry Potter, becoming a wizard requires very strict talent. Wizards are born with more brain power than common people, so that they can practice meditation. Ordinary people can only use one layer of the brain. 1. To put it another way, if a person has the aptitude of a wizard, even if he does not use magic, then in the world of regular people, if he studies diligently, he is extremely likely to become a top figure in a particular subject. For instance, a limited percentage of highly well-known scientists, including biologists and physicists, may possess magical abilities. Haas can neither learn meditation nor has magical talent because he is a lousy math student. I'll show you my most powerful magic today, which is also a variation of my transmutation magic, dragon transformation spell. Sunlock sat cross-legged on the ground on the suitcase lawn and spoke quietly to Jerry. You've seen the dragon transformation spell before. I summoned a dragon during the battle in Chinatown using magic. Transmutation is the basis of it. Traditional transmutation magic consists of changing an item into a particular form in accordance with one's own ideas. Such as mimicking an ordinary classic car into a sports car, forklift, road roller, etc. In order to help you in battle, you can also directly give a statue life like Balthazar. 2. The basic idea behind my dragon transformation spell is the same as transmutation magic. Although I added the best flame magic to it and made other adjustments. This implies that the enormous dragon summoned by the dragon transformation spell has the ability to use fire in addition to its physical attacks. Jerry chimed in. 1. He believes that the dragon transformation spell is incredibly powerful and that he has no chance of winning if they face off. Apart from the fact that it cannot fly, he felt that the genuine fire dragons in the Harry Potter universe should be on par in a battle. Yet, despite this magic is strong, it also has several drawbacks. Sunlock made a point of it when he explained, to begin with, unlike conventional transmutation magic, it lacks self-control. The wizard must concentrate on controlling it before it can attack normally. The magic will be instantly revoked if the wizard is attacked at this time and is unable to maintain it. You must be well aware of this. Jerry nodded, knowing well that at the time, he had used the snake summoning curse and the disillusionment charm to sneak attack Sunlock and get away with it. It would appear that he would need to choose a secure location first if he intended to use the dragon transformation spell in the future. Second, a lot of mana is used by this magic. The medium for casting the spell must be ready in advance, and it cannot be utilized for an extended period of time. I won't be able to use this magic if there isn't a dragon dance performance that day. Sunlock went on. Spells can be cast using a simple medium. When the time is right, he will invest money to hire a person to create a dragon-shaped medium, which he will then put in the suitcase and utilize when casting spells. And finally, you can't be too far from the dragon. If not, you won't be able to control it, and the magic will start to flow on its own. Jerry can handle this requirement. Because of his current level of magical power, it is impossible to cast pseudo-magic spells that are as powerful as Balthazar's and summon a massive iron eagle to help in the battle. This dragon transformation spell is a little tricky to use and has a lot of drawbacks, but as long as you learn it and get your medium ready beforehand, you can use it right away. Jerry then went to learn the dragon transformation magic with Sunlock. He kept talking and studying until 2 or 3 in the morning, at which point he stopped and began his daily meditation in the Ring of Merlin that he had previously drawn on the lawn. Jerry discovered that his meditation approach was very effective and that the brain became very active after turning on refreshing. However, he is not sure if this was the reason. He can tell that his magic strength has greatly increased almost every night. He may have been able to insist on conducting meditation every night rather than sleeping soundly because of this very thing. People can be like this at times. Your motivation and perseverance will increase when you can see your progress. It is simple to give up if you don't see results for a while. 1. When you are in school, it is simple to advance and become a top student as long as you put in the necessary effort. But, major progress is rarely possible for students with exceptionally poor grades. It is challenging to continue since their foundation is too weak, making it tough to make significant development via hard work quickly. Around 6 in the morning, after spending the entire night in meditation, Jerry opened his eyes, stepped away from the suitcase, and went back to Aisha's room. The sleeping charm on Aisha during this time has long since vanished as a result of time. Yet, based on how she seems, it is predicted that she won't be awakened for a short while without the sleeping charm. 1. The living room was vacant when the door was pushed open. The two adults returned to their rooms to carry on their activities after apparently realizing it was wrong to be in the living room yesterday. 1. Jerry quickly showered before heading outside to begin his exercise. Since time was of the essence, it was evidently not useful to devote time to physical training that could no longer benefit him. He stopped doing physical training frequently after understanding magic. But, Jerry found a difficulty after trying meditation. That is, despite meditation primarily being used to boost magic power and vitality, the benefits to the body are not immediately apparent. The shackles of his human body appear to be loosened as a result of the absorption of external energy. He will start exercising again at this point, and his body will be able to tell the difference. Chapter 131, Chapter 131 The Expo in Queens. He also questioned Sunlock about the claim that meditation may push the boundaries of the human body. Sunlock assured him that it was normal because this is a common occurrence. Breaking through human limitations is the goal of meditation practice. It is not common for them to be freed from the confines of the physical body because they can live forever. Yet, since wizards already spend a lot of time practicing meditation and studying magic, under normal circumstances, no wizard would spend time training their physical body. A few fireballs will completely burn a wizard's body. Therefore, spending a lot of time developing their body to be 2 or 3 times stronger than the average person makes little sense. The most important factor is that magic is an artistic endeavor for wizards. However, Jerry disagrees with this. Even if magic is crucial, the physical body is equally significant, and the two work best together. He believed that one could defend themselves using both magic and physical prowess. Also, he has refreshing. Once his physical foundation is strong, his combat abilities can be greatly improved. Imagine how fantastic it would be when the enemy believed you to be a weak wizard, eventually managed to get past your different magics, and came up to you, only for you to shove and punch them in return. 6. Of course, magic should be used as much as possible to win the battle. Close combat can be used just as an ace card that is played when it matters most. Therefore, using magic to handle the problem remotely is safer because close quarters fight is riskier. A week later, in Queen's most opulent and noticeable exhibition space. Following Pizarro, Jerry, Aisha, Haas, and Bell sat down in the seats that had been set aside for them. At least 1,000 individuals were in the exhibition hall at this time. Almost everyone who could sit here, with the exception of a few reporters and employees, was wealthy and influential in New York, along with their families. Several military generals and lawmakers from the political world attended. Hammer Industries wants to demonstrate to everyone that combat robots can now take the place of actual men on the battlefield. If it goes well, it could alter how warfare is conducted in the future. Good evening, Miss Potts. Is Mr. Stark present right now? Pizarro's voice soon reached Jerry when he sat down. When he turned to look, he saw that Pizarro was conversing with someone and that the person seated next to the blonde beauty was a friend. Jerry used the hair removal magic on the plane a while back to assist Natasha, the Black Widow, in shaving her hair. 5. Pizarro, Mr. Stark is unable to attend today's event since he must attend to some pressing business. Potts looked at Pizarro, then answered with a smile. Potts still values Pizarro highly because he is one of Stark's primary industrial raw materials suppliers and a crucial collaborator. She has to do all the jobs by herself, especially now that Tony is not available. She wants Stark Industries to be trouble-free, despite the fact that she is still bitter in her heart. Wow, That's extremely unfortunate, Pizarro sighed softly as he turned to face Potts. Initially, Tony's presence was the reason. He had complete faith in Stark Industries, so Stark Industries received preference over Hammer Industries when it came to the delivery of raw materials. But as of right now, Tony has actually given Pepper Potts control over the whole Stark industry. Also, there have been numerous absurd behaviors spread today regarding Tony. He began to focus on Hammer Industries as a result of this gradually. He will have to carefully evaluate future collaboration to determine if Hammer Industries robots are actually as potent as Hammer claimed this time. Who is this? Potts regarded Haas and Belle. Oh, that's Belle, my daughter, and her partner. Pizarro concentrated on introducing the three and his daughter. At this point, music began to play on the stage in front of the exhibition hall as well as throughout the entire show hall. Hammer, who was dressed in a grey suit, moved to the podium's middle while being applauded. He then launched into an eloquent speech. The fundamental point of the entire speech is that with robot troops, conflicts won't require actual soldiers to enter the battlefield. Instead, victory would be achieved by remotely controlling a computer in the back. Jerry, who was seated further away, laughed at Hammer's remarks. Because hacking technology is so simple in a technologically advanced society like Marvel, he has always believed that using robots to wage war is incredibly unreliable. They should be worried that all the robots they have worked so hard to create with so much money will end up serving someone else if they run into a strong hacker. 5 rows of steel robots from Hammer Industries also started to emerge from the underground elevator halfway through the speech. Each of the four arms, Army, Navy, Air Force, and Special Forces, has 8 robots that stand close to 3 meters tall and appear menacing. Ultimately, according to a military department directive, Colonel Rhodes, Iron Man's close friend, also made an appearance while donning the War Machine armor. However, a golden and crimson figure swooped towards him in the distance and gracefully landed on the podium as the audience cheered. Nearly everyone in the exhibition hall stood up and cheered when they saw the figure step up to the podium. The war robot displayed on the stage is excellent. But how can they be compared to Iron Man, who has a distinct personal charm, when they are just soulless machines? Until this point, many observants in the exhibition hall had realized that, despite Hammer Industries' remote control robot performing properly this time, it was utterly impossible for him to stand shoulder to shoulder with Iron Man, and that they were not even on the same level. The same is true for Pizarro, who is currently standing as well. Tony would undoubtedly be the center of attention when wearing the iron suit, regardless of how absurd his actions were beforehand. Hey, what's happening? All of a sudden, Colonel Rhodes in armor and the Hammer Industries robots simultaneously displayed their weapons and pointed at Tony. This scene caused the audience to panic. Chapter 132, Chapter 132 Robot Riot 2. He observed how, as Iron Man shot into the air, the robots stationed at the stage immediately turned on their weapons, and the bullets erupted madly in his direction, shattering all the glass over the entire exhibition hall in an instant. As soon as Jerry realized this, an invisible air shield emerged above him, shielding him from many glass shards that might harm Aisha and the others in the wreckage. Is Hammer crazy? How could he shoot something up here? At this point, Pizarro or the majority of people believe that Hammer is the brains behind everything. He did create these robots, after all. Quick, get out of here. It's not safe here. Quickly picking up Aisha, Haas drew Jerry in the direction of Belle and Pizarro. As Tony was being pursued by half of the robots, the other half of the ground robots, which were incapable of flight, jumped off the stage. As Belle heard the remarks, she hurriedly assisted Pizarro in getting to his feet and then quickly left the exhibition hall with Haas. The safety of the crowd below wasn't a concern for the robot. Everyone who stood in front of them, no matter who they were, would be mercilessly knocked aside by them when they sprang off the stage and dashed outside. Being struck by a 3-meter-tall steel robot traveling at top speed is probably not that much worse than getting struck by a moving vehicle. The machine guns and grenades mounted on these robots' shoulders were still being used to attack Iron Man as they ran. Although many attacks failed, They all still splashed blood into the nearby buildings and crowds. Ugh. Just as Haas and the others were ready to leave the exhibition hall, a general in military uniform was rushing away from them when an army robot struck him. He quickly vomited blood and fell on the yelling throng among them. 1. The general is thought to have sustained at least a major injury, and the robot's speed was very high. In an instant, it moved in the direction of Belle, who was helping Pizarro after striking the general. Belle ended up in the robot's walking path by accident, and it was clear that the robot had no intention of avoiding her. Watch out. Haas swiftly released Jerry's hand at this point, took out a police gun, and fired twice at the robot in an effort to stop it from advancing forward. Yet, the protection of this robot is too strong for the attack capability of standard police weapons. The bullet struck the steel body of the robot, bounced off, and disappeared without leaving a trace. Haas handed Aisha to Jerry and turned to face Belle with a huge stride, using his hands to stop the robot before it could strike her before she could respond. He pushed Belle away and collided with the approaching robot. Haas will undoubtedly use his own body to stop the 3-meter-tall robot and give everyone time to flee. A loud boom wasn't caused by the robot hitting Haas, but the robot was tossed upside down by Haas and fell heavily to the ground. Haas was astounded to see the robot flying backward. What is happening? He didn't even touch the robot. Why then did it take off on its own? Haas, are you alright? I'm fine. Let's go. Haas didn't have time to consider what was going on when he saw Belle assisting Pizarro and running over with concern on his face. He quickly grabbed up Aisha once more, dragged Jerry along, and fled outside. Jerry silently withdrew his right hand at this point. In reality, Jerry had foreseen the robot's impending impact on Belle when it happened just now. Nonetheless, he refrained from acting at the moment because he believed that the situation was urgent. The advantages of Haas could be most clearly seen, and every action Haas took after that would win Pizarro more admiration. So he didn't lift his hand and cast a spell until the robot was about to strike Haas, at which point the robot was sent flying. As there are so many people around and Black Widow can be seen nearby, Jerry is unable to employ any overt magic and must instead use a spell to ease the situation temporarily. The air cannon can't harm the robot because of its strength. Yet, in this instance, as long as it can be flown out, Haas won't be harmed. You leave first, and I'll return later to take a look. Haas explained a few things and then led Belle and the others into Pizarro's car before turning around and running towards the exhibition hall. Although Haas advised Jerry not to push himself to prevent risk, he has never been cautious in his work as a police officer. Even if he couldn't handle those robots, at least he could protect the civilians from robot injuries. 3. Take care. Belle was concerned, but she didn't intervene. She spoke to Pizarro instead, who was going to start the vehicle after Haas had departed. Father, this is why I like Haas. He is brave, kind, and just. He won't think twice about risking his life to save me if I'm in danger. Can those young individuals that you know accomplish this? What else is there save the fact that they are good at making money? During a little period of silence after hearing what his daughter had said, Pizarro sighed and added, Belle, maybe your choice is right this time. Sleep. Jerry flicked his fingers and silently released a sleeping charm when he noticed that Pizarro was preparing to start the car and leave this place. Of course, he can't go right now for 2 reasons. He's a little concerned about Haas' safety, and this is a prime opportunity to earn red stars. He didn't gain them for a few days, so his red star reserves have significantly decreased. Unlock the door and, using the levitation spell, load Belle and the entire vehicle into the suitcase. Jerry located an alley, changed into his wizard robe, and then flew on a broomstick to the square outside the hall. At this point, Iron Man was engaged in a lone battle in the sky above the square. He had to pay attention to evading the attacks of the land robots below while dodging the chase of flying robots and Colonel Rhodes. They can currently only direct such remote-controlled robots to clash in the air more quickly. He planned to remove those robots from the city and destroy them one at a time. Chapter 133, Chapter 133 Magic Dragon vs Iron Soldiers 3. Ivan Vanko was having a great time at the Hammer Industry headquarters when he besieged and attacked Iron Man, who was wandering around by using a computer to command 32 robots and Colonel Rhodes' war machine, much like a cat chasing a mouse. 1. Iron Man's father expelled his father, Anton Vanko. He assisted Hammer, this time in taking down Stark Industries, eliminating Iron Man, and avenging his father. 1. After working for a time on the computer, the 8 army robots that were already in place on the plaza outside the exhibition hall stretched out a few long pliers and firmly embedded themselves, securely fixing their enormous bodies on the ground. Then they slowly extended anti-aircraft guns that were made specifically to fire at air units. Iron Man was the target of the anti-aircraft gun. Jarvis is undoubtedly better than those robots. As soon as it was locked, it sounded an alarm, allowing Iron Man to calmly avoid being shot while also using a repulsor to destroy the robots that were lying on the ground. 8 robots were scurrying through the crowd on the other side, searching for Iron Man's flight path in an effort to take him down with the homing missiles they carried. Upon passing through the crowd, one of the special robots unexpectedly saw a young child donning an Iron Man helmet. It mistakenly thought he was Iron Man, so the robot immediately lifted the machine gun behind him. When Tony noticed this, he accelerated, threw off Colonel Rhodes' war machine, and flew toward the young boy. But before he could get there, a kid on a broom emerged one step ahead of him, grabbed up the young boy, and carried him away from the robot's line of fire. It's the wizard. Tony knew right away that the wizard who had saved his life was the same wizard who had saved before. Handle the robots in the air. Leave the ones on the ground to me. Jerry waved his hand towards Tony in the air, and led the boy to the top of an empty building. Tony nodded, and flew into the air once more to lure all the robots away. Hey, kid, don't move and just stand still. After I've dealt with these robots, I'll send you down, Jerry said to the boy after seeing all the robots fly in Tony's direction. He retrieved a 20-meter-long plastic, the custom-made dragon that he had made 2 days ago, from the suitcase using a summoning spell. The boy removed his Iron Man helmet, gave a brief nod, and then turned to face the 20-meter-long plastic dragon. The dragon-shaped sculpture immediately sprang to life when Jerry touched his wristband on the compass after chanting the dragon transformation spell. Following the movement of the dragon-shaped sculpture on the compass, the plastic dragon on the roof turned into a magic dragon covered in black scales in an instant. The model and the dragon-shaped engraving on the compass are 2 important components of the dragon transformation spell. He sensed that a portion of his spirit entered the magical dragon's body due to the dragon transformation spell's accomplishment. This feeling is really amazing. He exhaled when he felt the magic dragon's body, leaving some of his mind in his main body to allow the magic to be discharged in case his body is in danger. Jerry commanded the dragon and dove from the top of the more than 10 meters high building. He quickly took control of the dragon after landing with a thud and raced for the robot in front of him. The magic dragon consumes a lot of mana, so he needs to fight quickly. What the hell is that? A dragon? The citizens who had fled in terror due to numerous explosions were instantly terrified and stopped fleeing when they saw the dragon coming down from the sky. They are able to comprehend the appearance of robots. After all, there was Iron Man, and Hammer Industries robot warriors received a lot of press. They flee because of fear of being unintentionally hurt by the robot's shots. They were surprised to discover a living dragon instead of what they had anticipated. Whether it's Eastern dragons, Western fire dragons, or prehistoric dinosaurs, it's not Jurassic Park and these animals can't exist in the real world. Hence, when a huge dragon that was longer than 20 meters came in the square, everyone momentarily forgot about the danger posed by the robot and stopped moving. Turn the camera to the dragon right away. In order to continue reporting, Lucy, hiding on a balcony on the second floor of the hall, urged the cameraman to switch to the dragon immediately. Lucy is also qualified to visit the exhibition hall this time because she is a reporter with a reputation for writing about wizards. She was so brave that, after the recent events, she didn't flee in terror like the rest. Instead, she ran head-on through the crowd to the second level of the hall with her cameraman, where they discovered a balcony from which to conduct an in-depth analysis of the robots and Iron Man in the sky. Guess who I just saw? It was the wizard. Please pan to the right and enlarge the area around the roof where the dragon has just appeared. Had you noticed that? The wizard is perched atop the structure. I suppose the wizard used magic to control the giant dragon just now. While drawn to the dragon, she instantly moved her head to the roof where the dragon had just jumped off, where she saw the wizard doing magic. Jerry concentrated most of his efforts on the dragon, which he directed to approach the first robot at a very fast speed. Jerry was not Iron Man. The robot's electronic eyes ignored that information and carried on scanning the sky. Jerry, however, didn't give a damn. He took direct control of the dragon, lifted his powerful dragon claws, seized the robot's cuffs, and smashed it to pieces. Although the robot's steel body is sturdy, a dragon's might is unmatched. The robot was flung out of the ground and its entire body shattered into pieces after taking such a string of blows. Vertical bar lost contact. Vertical bar. His attention is abruptly drawn to an alarm on the computer informing him that an army robot has been obliterated. Ivan Vanka continues to attack Iron Man inside the Hammer Industrial Building as he commands the robots. At first, he didn't care about it. But as soon as the computer reminded him that 3 robots had been destroyed, he understood something wasn't right. He briefly delegated the responsibility of encircling Iron Man to an AI, and the computer screen shifted to the ground robot. Chapter 134, Chapter 134 Aunt May and Little Peter Parker. What the hell is this? Ivan saw a massive dragon head biting towards him with its teeth wide as soon as he switched to the first-person viewpoint of a ground robot. The computer informed him that another robot had lost communication before he had a chance to respond, and the entire screen went black. It seems that he noticed. They finally stopped searching for Iron Man in the air to fire anti-aircraft cannons and turned to point the machine gun and grenade gun on their shoulders at him. Jerry was aware that the person in charge should have done it himself. But he had no fear of anything. The dragon was transformed by magic. It would still be fine even if it were killed. There would be no loss at all because he could simply make another later. Of course, there is no guarantee that these robots will be able to defeat the dragon. As he realized that Jerry was in control of the dragon, he violently flicked its tail like a bowling ball to instantly sweep away half of the robots that were in his immediate vicinity. The remaining robots' machine guns and howitzers began to fire at him at this point as well. The dragon is not only strong but also well defended. Despite the strength of those machine guns and howitzers, it is difficult to destroy the dragon quickly. Jerry, who felt no pain at all despite being surrounded by dense bullets, opened his lips and let out a mouthful of flame that looked like a high-pressure flame, instantly dousing the remaining robots in flames. The dragon's body began to break apart over time, and the robot's bullets and explosives started to appear less frequently. 1. Machine guns and grenades ultimately succeeded in totally destroying the dragon, which then returned to its original plastic dragon form as the flames subsided. Those robots were not having a good time. Practically all of them had been turned into a pile of scrap iron with only half of their body remaining, barely able to fire bullets. Some of the brave civilians began to gradually come to this side after seeing that the dragon had been killed and the robots had been all but eliminated. What is happening? What caused the dragon to become plastic? Take caution. That robot's half is still moving. Oh my gosh, my food truck was just destroyed by these goddamn robots. 2. Look, the wizard is coming. A wizard-clad figure on a broom came descending from the skies as everyone was talking. It was Jerry who came down with the little boy. The robot's barrels softened fully and drooped there like noodles with a wave of Jerry's wand. He then turned to face the plastic dragon model. The dragon model is currently covered in cracks and bullet holes, making it clear that it cannot be used once more. Reparo. A mystical light appeared on the plastic dragon after tapping the wand. It took only a few seconds to totally restore the already damaged plastic dragon to its previous form. 1. It turns out that Jerry had given it some thought and believed that creating another plastic dragon would be difficult. He just so happened to recall a simple solution to this issue from the first grade textbook, a magic spell. One of the first grade's fundamental spells, Repairing Charm, can make broken goods look as good as new and is frequently used to fix little items like glasses. You can also fix some massive items, like houses, if you have a specific level of proficiency in this magic. In fact, Jerry had a nagging suspicion that the Repairing Charm might not be as straightforward as the introduction, since he recalled that when Dumbledore visited Professor Slughorn's home in the film, he returned everything to its former state. He thought the spell was more akin to time magic, traveling back in time to return the object to its original state. 4. Jerry tossed the plastic dragon model back into the suitcase with satisfaction after seeing it in perfect condition. Everyone raised their hands in applause when they realized that the enormous dragon that was currently battling the robot had been summoned by the wizard using magic. "Where did you go, Peter?" A concerned lady went to the little boy standing next to Jerry at this moment. She was wearing a red sweater and had long hair. "Aunt, I was just about to get attacked by a robot, but the wizard sister saved me." Wizard sister? Jerry was momentarily startled until he realized that everyone still saw him as a girl. 1. I'm May Parker, and thank you for saving Peter. The woman promptly hugged Jerry to show her appreciation after hearing this. 2. Jerry quickly broke away from his thoughts and replied, "Don't mention it." But then he suddenly thought of something, and looked at the lady again. "You said your name was May Parker?" "Yes, that's correct." May nodded in confusion. "And you are his aunt?" Jerry pointed to the little boy. May nodded again. "So, your name should be Peter Parker." Jerry turned to look at the little boy. The little boy was stunned for a moment and then replied, "Yes, my name is Peter Parker. Didn't I tell you on the roof back then?" Back then? He had just focused most of his attention on controlling the dragon on top of the building, so he wasn't paying attention in what he was saying. Surprisingly, the boy he saved turned out to be the well-known Spider-Man in the future. Jerry enjoys Spider-Man. He has seen the entire Spider-Man trilogy that Tobey Maguire portrayed back then. He does not share Spider-Man's philosophy, but that does not stop him from admiring Spider-Man's benevolence and sense of justice. 1. You must be aware that Venom's possession magnifies the worst aspect of his heart in the third film. He goes to the bar to dance, begs his boss for a pay raise, and makes threats about throwing dirt in people's eyes. 4. Jerry patted the boy on the shoulder and was about to head to the exhibition hall to see if Haas needed his assistance with anything when there was an abrupt roar in the distance. Looking above, he saw Iron Man, who, while being held tightly by Rhodes' war machine, had just destroyed a few robots in the air and crashed into the exhibition hall's ecological park. It seems that Mr. Stark may need more help now. There was presumably no immediate threat to Haas because he had previously defeated all of the ground robots. Jerry ultimately decided to get back on the broom and fly over to the ecological park. 1. Chapter 135, Chapter 135 Sneak Attack. Colonel Rhodes and Tony both suffered significant falls in the park's forest. Although being shielded by his own armor, Tony was still unsteady from the fall and took some time to stand up. Even though Colonel Rhodes was inside the war machine, which was remotely controlled, the armor rapidly stood up and charged at Tony. War Machine's M134 machine gun began to fire, aiming at Tony's head, who was underneath him with the intention of killing him with the weapon. Thankfully, Tony finally responded at this point and firmly extended a hand to pinch the machine gun's barrel in an effort to prevent it from aiming at his head. His armor's power is still the same as before, and a lot of energy was expended in the recent intense flight and robot combat because the new arc reactor has not yet been fully developed. He briefly felt overpowered after being restrained by the war machine. Tony's temporary relief from the life crisis brought on by the wizard's magic cure made him motivated to explore his father's belongings. This also caused the new arc reactor to be delayed at this time, despite the fact that he discovered a new element through his father's relics that might totally replace palladium. He had to put on his gear, rush over from Los Angeles, and utilize the previous arc reactor to make an emergency call after the laboratory received a call from Ivan Vanko. Thankfully, he no longer fears becoming poisoned because he is convinced that by returning, he will be able to fully construct the new reactor and permanently eliminate the threat of palladium poisoning. Colonel Rhodes' body, which was crushing on Tony just as he could no longer hold on, was quickly launched into the air when a magic light flashed. Jerry was the one who arrived on the broom. "It's you again." Ivan Vanko, who was flying from Hammer Industries to the ecological park while wearing his armor, noticed Jerry's figure via the war machine at this point, and his eyes grew cold. This kid used cunning methods to get rid of all his ground robots. He would have used those Air Force robots to deal with him if he hadn't wanted to kill Tony first. "See if he can handle this." Ivan started to launch a counterattack while being remotely commanded by his armor. War Machine, suspended upside down in the park, obviously stopped for a while before the propellers on each of its feet were ignited instantaneously, directly shattering Jerry's spell. War Machine then dropped to the ground. People can rarely break spells in the air since there is nowhere for them to exert their strength. They can only be overcome by countercurse, or the effect of the spell will disappear after the time is over. War Machine, however, is a combat suit. It has propellers. He can forcibly fall on the earth even if he is hanging upside down in midair thanks to the force of the propellers. Soon after touching down, War Machine set up the machine gun behind it and prepared to attack Jerry. Jerry waved at War Machine at this point while remaining calm and collected. Because Tony had already been seen standing there and aiming the repulsor at the War Machine. Sure enough, Tony's repulsor barraged War Machine in advance before his machine gun could attack, sending him flying straight into a nearby tree. Tony also got a message from Black Widow at this point. War Machine has been restarted. Colonel Rhodes ought to be okay right now. It turned out that Black Widow had subdued all of Hammer Industries' security at this point to go to Ivan Vanko's computer. She effectively freed War Machine from Ivan's control due to her excellent hacking abilities. "Thanks, Agent Romanoff." Tony approached Colonel Rhodes and knocked on his helmet with his hand. "Hey, wake up. Are you okay?" "Yeah, I'm fine." Colonel Rhodes opened his helmet and shook his unconscious head. "Mr. Stark, I saved you again. Is it over now?" He approached both of them when Jerry saw that Colonel Rhodes was back to normal. "Thank you, but I'm afraid the situation is not over yet. The robots that were after me just now are definitely coming soon," Tony told Jerry as he picked up Colonel Rhodes off the ground. Tony received a further alert from Black Widow at this point, and the computer displayed the arrival of 12 robots. Ivan might have utilized different controls to operate those robots once more. "Best of luck to you all." Jerry instantly rushed into the neighboring woods and vanished after hearing this. Jerry currently has no effective means of combating those flying robots. He can still utilize his dragon, but it can't fly and will likely be a moving target on the ground. The key is that he currently possesses little magic power. Nevertheless, even with the Protego charm on the wizard's robe, they are not safe because there are so many flying robots, many of which carry machine guns and missiles. He didn't mean to flee, but he had to first hide in the shadows because fighting in front of those robots was plainly not a good idea. He may then covertly deploy magic help in the dark while Tony and Rhodes stand in the front. The robots have a strong defense, and the majority of his offensive magic is not lethal to them. He was able to inflict such harm on them just now by controlling the dragon from a distance and crushing the dozen or so ground robots that are incapable of flight. Nevertheless, safety has always been first in Jerry's mindset even though he was the last person to enter the park at this time. Wait. Tony lifted his hand in utter silence before putting it down again after witnessing Jerry leave the area without hesitation. Even though the wizard can do magic tricks, he is still a little child. How can a child be permitted to take part in the upcoming fight? "Alright, buddy, what's your next move?" Tony looked at Colonel Rhodes. "I believe we should first establish a commanding height and then unleash an attack on them after they touched down." Colonel Rhodes turned his head and peered around. The 12 robots had already landed on the ground and were encircling them when they debated where to choose the commanding heights. At the same moment, Jerry quietly took out a mirror from his suitcase as he was hidden in the bushes. "Let me now demonstrate my mirror image wizardry." Chapter 136, Chapter 136 Hungarian Mirror Trap. In a one-on-one fight with any human or beast, Jerry still stands a fair chance of winning thanks to his present strength and the various magics he has learned. It is a little challenging to fight if there are too many foes and they can cover an entire area of the battlefield. Jerry was well aware of this. In the end, there isn't enough time to master magic. He will only have enough time to learn magic, even with the aid of refreshing in 1 year. 1. In particular, he studied a variety of magics from several sources rather than specializing in a handful. Although magic's short-term power was diminished, its capacity to save lives was substantially enhanced. When you can't win the battle, it's not a problem to employ any form of magic to run away. Also, he is no longer battling by himself. 2 people are now fighting in front of him. Jerry pulled out the mirror, touched the surface with his hand, chanted a magic spell, and the mirror rippled at once. The Hungarian mirror trap has the ability to briefly generate a small world in the mirror. After being thrown within, the enemy will become imprisoned in the mirror world and unable to escape. It is said that if the enemy deployed a bomb in the mirror world, it will be destroyed instantly because the mirror world's strength is correlated to the wizard's strength. Jerry nevertheless released this magic at this time because it could only control the robots that were being commanded remotely. He silently peered out after using magic to levitate it and observed Tony and Colonel Rhodes engaging the robot soldiers in hand-to-hand combat. Find a way to fling those robots at the mirror. Jerry stepped back and once again hid himself in the park's forest after using the amplifying charm to make his voice more audible. As Tony unexpectedly heard Jerry's voice while carrying a robot army gun, he turned to look and saw a big mirror floating in the air. Tony flung the robot soldier in his palm in the direction of the mirror even though he didn't understand what Jerry meant. The imagined smashing of the mirror did not happen. Just after making contact with the mirror's surface, the robot dropped into the mirror, appeared in the mirror's world, and stopped moving. Jerry would undoubtedly be unable to sustain the mirror world if the robot soldier stood up and began to bombard the mirror world. The robot soldier was no longer in the same universe as reality once it entered the mirror world. 1. Ivan is operating these robots from a distance, which is why they are currently attacking Tony. They won't attack again after entering the mirror world since they will naturally be unable to receive the remote control signal. After the recent series of intense battles and flights, Tony was still utilizing the outdated palladium arc reactor, therefore the energy was severely lacking at this point. This briefly rendered many of his attacks temporarily unusable, including the repulsor on his hand. He is now essentially engaging in hand-to-hand combat while wearing the iron armor. Thankfully, he has been looking for trainers to practice different fighting techniques like boxing, martial arts, and fighting ever since he became Iron Man. All of these robots' body parts are composed of tough steel. Even though they don't have as good of a defense as his iron suits, it's still challenging to defeat them in hand-to-hand battle. War Machine, which Colonel Rhodes is controlling, has some issues with the suit as well as running out of ammunition because of Tony's repulsor back then. Man, I love magic. When Colonel Rhodes, who had just been crushed by the robot soldiers, saw that Jerry had created a magic mirror that could seal the robot soldiers, he loudly thanked him. The robot soldiers on his body slammed at the mirror with a powerful kick. Although it is difficult to entirely destroy these robot troops, it is not too difficult to fling them into the mirror. These robots can't be as adaptable as Tony and Colonel Rhodes in action because Ivan controls them remotely. Just like that, the 12 robot soldiers were swiftly sent into the mirror world with tacit cooperation from Tony and Colonel Rhodes. Jerry was happy by the result of this. He now has 12 robots at his disposal that can be controlled remotely. These robots have now contained in his mirror world. Of course, returning them to the government or Hammer Industries is not a good idea. Tony, who still owes him 2 favors, knows how to control these robots. If it fails, S.H.I.E.L.D. will step in. S.H.I.E.L.D. will ask for his assistance later and he may ask them to handle the command of these robot soldiers. 2. There are many skilled hackers in the world, and he'll find a method to spend a lot of money to do it when the time comes, even though it might be a little challenging. When Jerry was about to leave and felt the situation had been resolved, a robot soldier with an abnormally huge size and strange shape suddenly descended from the sky. It opened its helmet to show a middle-aged man's head. Ivan Vanko, the genius behind everything, arrived with a whip he had created while wearing an armor. Ivan closed his helmet once more, swung his hands forcefully, and two long whips with lightning appeared in his hands after speaking harshly to Tony and Colonel Rhodes. When he whipped the ground, two large cracks developed on it at once. However, Ivan did not instantly attack Tony and Colonel Rhodes at this time. Instead, he swung his hand in the direction of the mirror, clearly intending to destroy the strange mirror that had initially sucked up the 12 robot soldiers. When Jerry learned about the enemy's plans at this point, he promptly used his levitation charm to recover the mirror. If the whip hits his mirror with enough force, his mirror world will instantly explode, releasing the 12 robot soldiers once more. Jerry hurriedly backed away after grabbing the mirror and threw it right into the suitcase. As soon as he stepped forward, the area where he was standing was immediately surrounded by heavy artillery fire. It came out that Ivan had previously prepared before he landed as a result of a series of earlier incidents. Before the crucial fight with Tony, he sought to eliminate Jerry, a strange person with a variety of strange magic. After all, magic can occasionally be confusing, especially for a scientist. Chapter 137, Chapter 137 Charge. Well, shit. Tony and Colonel Rhodes assumed the same thing when they saw Ivan emerge in the whiplash armor. Let me launch my ex-wife missile at him. 2. As Colonel Rhodes saw Ivan was ready to attack Jerry, who was hiding in the jungle, he swiftly activated the ultimate weapon that had recently been added to the war machine. After receiving it back from Tony, the military requested Hammer to load as many weapons as he could onto the war machine armor to maximize its lethality. Rhodes is using the most powerful weapon on the armor, the Sidewinder missile, affectionately named ex-wife by Hammer. It contains cyclotrimethylene trinitramine explosives, which are incredibly potent and capable of destroying a building and blowing up an entire bunker with just one shot. 9. Rhodes' right shoulder's armor began to shift mechanically, and a little launcher was swiftly elevated. Then, with a click, a cigar-sized missile flew out, hit Ivan's whip armor precisely, and then fell to the ground under him. The smoke disappeared, and there was no more motion. 1. Tony glared at him and asked, "From Hammer Industries?" Colonel Rhodes awkwardly nodded. The ex-wife had little effect on him, so the two were forced to rush Ivan with plans to engage in hand-to-hand combat. 1. Ivan has already done enough research on Rhodes' war machine and Tony's armor. His whiplash armor is designed to withstand Tony's armor. The electric whip, a close combat weapon, and Tony and Rhodes' armor pale compared to the whiplash armor in size and power. More significantly, the opponent can only engage him in close combat at this point because he has exhausted all the guns on Tony and Rhodes' battle armor with his robots. After a series of hand-to-hand fights, even if Tony and Rhodes were 2 against 1, there was still no match for Ivan. If this continued, it would probably not be long before the two of them would have to be beaten to death by Ivan. In the meantime, Jerry was keeping busy in the woods where he was hiding. After anticipating Ivan's strike, he cast a summoning spell to bring up a picture book from the gap in the suitcase and hastily flipped it to one side. Several bison with large horns are rushing furiously across a prairie in the book. Jerry cast a spell by flicking his finger in the direction of the book. With a flick of his finger toward the book, Jerry cast a spell. The buffaloes in the book began to emerge one by one after the spell was finished, and they all neatly stood in front of Jerry. The animals in the image can become reality thanks to the wizardry of the Morganians. Horvath's pterosaurs and other gigantic dinosaurs are beyond of reach for Jerry's strength, but he can still morph into common animals like bison. Go, bison, charge. 3. Jerry climbed onto the final bison after dozens of them had lined up. The bison bolted for the area where Ivan and the others were engaged in combat with a wave of his magic wand. At this time, in the open space, Ivan's electric whip simultaneously locked Tony and Rhodes after a tough battle. The two struggled to break free from left to right. The three of them noticed that a big area of trees in the direction of the forest started to tremble as if they had been touched by something as soon as there was a sharp tremor on the ground. Following then, a sizable herd of bison dashed out of the forest. The herd of bison charged directly at Ivan at a pace of almost 10 meters per second, their broad horns on their backs. Jerry sat at the tail end of the herd of bison. Ivan hastily retracted the electric whip and began to propel away in order to dodge the herds of approaching bison. A bison can easily lift a car. With so many of them charging over at once, it is predicted that even with his whiplash armor, he will be crushed to death. "Don't let him fly," Jerry shouted at Tony and Rhodes with an amplifying charm after noticing that Ivan tried to fly away from it. Rhodes and Tony recognized it right away. They extended both hands to grab the electric whip when Ivan pulled it back, dragging Ivan, who was about to take off as they did so. The whiplash armor that Ivan specifically created to combat Tony's armor rapidly distorted and split from the violent impact of numerous bison striking him one after the other. Ivan regrets using so much long-range weaponry back then. With his whiplash being restrained by the enemy, he doesn't have any means of defense against the approaching bison. The whiplash armor is made for close combat fighting only. The main weapon is two powerful electric whips. Naturally, there are very few other weapons. In order to deal with Jerry, who was hiding in the forest just now, Ivan had used all of his when he first landed. It's just that he didn't expect Jerry to be aware of it in advance, and they all avoided it. "I can't hold it much longer." Under the strong impact of the bison, Tony and Rhodes, who were pulling two electric whips, were also knocked out together, and then let go of the electric whips in their hands while rolling. Ivan finally brandished his electric whip once again without Tony and Rhodes' restrictions. After a few consecutive strokes, the electric whip, which has enough force to split an ordinary automobile in half, splits the approaching bison into two halves. But when he used all of his effort to slay the bison, he failed to realize that Jerry was riding a bison that was approaching from behind him. Jerry then formed his hands into the shape of his two palms. It was the magic that Balthazar's created. A light sphere appeared between his palms. The characteristic of the lightning ball magic is that there is no need to chant spells, and the speed is extremely fast, which is difficult for ordinary people to avoid. But, even with Jerry's strength at this moment, the lightning ball he unleashed was not very potent. It couldn't even penetrate Ivan's armor. Yet the magic has a peculiarity. If you don't worry about the activation speed, you can output as much magic power as you can to condense the ball and boost its strength. Yet the challenge is that it requires considerable magic control to keep it from blowing up before it is released. Of course, this is nothing to Jerry. He will have extremely powerful magic control when he activates refreshing. As time passed, the ball in Jerry's hand grew in size from a fist to a rugby ball, then a volleyball, and finally, it grew to the size of a basketball before stopping. Chapter 138, Chapter 138 Charged Lightning Ball 1. Ivan instantly felt something and turned to check behind him after wildly swinging his electric whip to dispatch all the bison charging at him finally. "Hey, try to block this." When Jerry saw Ivan turn around, he stopped condensing the lightning ball and instead pushed it out of his hand. The lightning ball, which was a circle the size of a basketball when it left Jerry's hands, flew towards Ivan like a mad horse while flashing with the breath of devastation. Ivan felt awful and turned on the propeller immediately to avoid it, but the fight with Tony and Rhodes and the recent collision with a large herd of bison had already significantly damaged his suit. As a result, his thruster also started a second later than usual, but at this point, he was doomed to fail in his attempt to avoid Jerry's particle gun. Boom! A huge explosion was heard. A blinding glare and a jet of air nearly blew Jerry off the buffalo's back. After things calmed down, a large pit with a roughly 5-meter diameter developed where Ivan was standing, and half of Ivan's armor was entirely destroyed in the large pit. Ivan, in the suit, was already lifeless and covered in blood. Colonel Rhodes and Tony rose and moved toward the large hole. They both simultaneously thought about the wizard that just finished the enemy in one blow as they observed Ivan's pitiful demeanor inside. If it's true that Jerry convinced Tony that he was a good kid who could do magic, concoct a few potions, and save his life, he now has a very different perspective on Jerry. As he rode a bison to the deep pit and turned to Colonel Rhodes and Tony, who were resting wearily on a rock next to them, Jerry said, "Finally, it's over." "Yeah, it's over. Ivan Vanko is the brains behind this incident. Now that he's... Tony looked at him for a moment and said, he'll definitely not going to cause any more trouble for us. You guys rest here, and I'll check to see if anyone needs my assistance in the exhibition hall. Jerry pulled out the broom, touched the bison, and made it back to normal before leaving the park. Several regular civilians were hurt in the recent incident by gunfire and bombs. He should be able to get another wave of red stars now that he has used the healing spell to help the civilians. Colonel Rhodes murmured slowly as he watched Jerry's back on a broomstick totally vanish into the air. That wizard does indeed amazing. Of course, she is. I hate to say it, but her magic is truly amazing. Tony sighed in relief as he opened his helmet. He has always denied magic as a scientist, but he now has to accept that Jerry is a really skilled wizard. Colonel Rhodes shook his head and asked, it's not about her powers. Do you believe a child of her age would appear so serene if she killed someone for the first time? You're right. Tony eventually realized what was going on when he remembered Jerry's composed and steady tone when he recently saw Ivan's body. He sensed that there might be something hidden in it. However, in light of the news he had read about wizards and this rare encounter, he could at least be certain that the wizard is a good person. All right, forget about that. We'll handle the aftermath later. I'm going to find Potts because she is still upset with me. Tony stood up, put on his helmet, and fled toward the hall. Rhodes didn't say much. When he saw the ex-wife who was still lying motionlessly on the ground, he murmured to himself, fucking Justin Hammer. 1. After the robot soldier demonstration, the military department initially intended to sign a 25-year contract with Hammer Industries. However, after the robot riot and the discovery that Hammer Industries' ultimate weapon was a dud, they may cancel the agreement. This incident may cause Justin Hammer to go to prison for a few years. Jerry soon located Haas in the exhibition hall after he arrived, who was assisting with maintaining order and attending to the injured. In order to help some critically injured victims survive at least until they were taken to the hospital, he utilized his magic to cast a healing spell. As he realized that the time was almost up, he decided not to stay any longer and instead went back to the hall's parking lot, where he silently took out Pizarro's car from the suitcase. Jerry returned to his seat and pointed at Pizarro, sitting in the driver's seat. He then cast a reviving spell, closed his eyes, and pretended to be asleep. Pizarro slowly opened his eyes, and looked around in a daze. What's wrong with me? Let's get out of here quickly. Pizarro hurriedly started the car once more while recalling the robot riot that just occurred in the hall. Belle, what's wrong with you? Pizarro noticed Belle next to her had also fallen asleep as the car started, and there were two kids behind her. Without giving it any thought, he pressed the gas pedal and sped out of the exhibition hall's parking lot, planning to leave as quickly as possible. But, as soon as he hurried out of the garage, he noticed that there were no more robots and that there were only officers outside. It had been exactly 40 minutes since they had left the exhibition hall when he unintentionally glanced at the car's clock. Could it be that those robot troops are also armed with anesthetic and hypnosis weapons? He wondered. Pizarro's initial question at this moment was whether the robot warriors were armed with drug-infused smoke bombs. When they left the exhibition hall, they took a small breath, making them drowsy. The reviving spell was cast on Aisha and Belle in front of Jerry at the same moment while he pretended to be asleep by flicking his fingers repeatedly. Jerry opened his eyes while acting like he was in a daze like Belle and Aisha. As the car's window was knocked, Pizarro lowered it and saw Haas, who had a surprised look on his face. You guys should have departed long ago. Why are you still in this place? It turned out that Haas was working with other colleagues who had arrived to handle the robot riot's aftermath. Just in time, he notices Pizarro's car parked close to the exhibition hall. He quickly approached it while seeming confused. Pizarro and the others ought to have left this area 40 minutes ago. What? Belle, who had just woken up, looked at Haas in front of the car window and asked with surprise on her face. Chapter 139, Chapter 139 The Hammer That Falls from the Sky 2. Late at night, in Jerry's room. 30,000 red stars. It is true that I can earn many red stars by participating in such a big incident." Jerry was pleased as he counted the red stars on his panel, which had climbed during the robot riot to a total of 30,000. You must be aware that his refreshing negative effects are now progressively less noticeable. Also, he has spent this time focusing on researching magic and strengthening his powers, thus he hasn't really been out fighting crime. His red star amount has consequently always been low. The approach was a little risky this time, but the results were quite substantial. That is why he was thrilled at this moment. Red stars are Jerry's most valuable resource, despite the fact that they cannot directly boost his strength. The effectiveness of learning magic will be significantly decreased without the red star. It is difficult to enter the parallel world in order to increase his power without them. In particular, he intended to spend some time in the Harry Potter world since there were just 2 days left until the cooldown ended. Since his last visit, he has purchased a sizable amount of magic books, including 7th grade textbooks, allowing him to study a sizable number of spells for the higher grades. After he read it, there was still a significant lack of understanding and extensive spell usage. The transformation charm should be the finest magic spell to use while dealing with those robots. He can easily win the battle as long as he can change some crucial components of those robots into other substances. It's unfortunate that he studied too much magic during this time and didn't put enough effort into transfiguration, as a result of which he was unable to turn those challenging and intricate robots accurately. 1. Relying on magic you learned on your own is still far worse. He would still require the teacher's careful guidance if he wished to increase his magic ability swiftly. Sunlock is now in charge of the magic discovered in the Sorcerer's Apprentice universe, which is sufficient for the time being. Yet he still needs to visit Hogwarts to spend time with the professors studying the magic in the Harry Potter universe. After clearing his mind, he put on his wizard robe once more and took off on a broom for Manhattan. "I haven't been out in a long. The criminal must be active in Manhattan once more right now." The SHIELD branch in New York 2 days later. The first is a detailed report on the robot riot in the Queen's Exhibition Hall, and the second is a report on Tony Stark's personal assessment. Black Widow said, placing 2 documents on Nick Fury's desk. After carefully reading the 2 documents, Fury questioned Black Widow in-depth questions regarding the details before responding. "Make contact with Tony Stark and ask him to come to me tomorrow morning. I need to talk to him about something." After hearing this, Black Widow nodded and walked out of the room. Upon Black Widow's departure, Fury sat back in his chair and lowered his eyes gradually. A little while later, he abruptly opened his eyes, clicked a desk button, and stated into a desk-mounted microphone, "Tell Agent Hill to come to my office." 5 minutes later. "Are you looking for me, Director?" Agent Hill entered the workspace. "What's going on with Captain America?" Fury asked directly. Hill's face lit up with a smile. "Tests conducted by our experts indicate that it might be due to the ice or the super soldier serum. Captain America still has a very strong life vital after having been frozen for 70 years. Captain America should be able to recover from it fully, provided that we melt the sealed ice and after a period of time." "Really good, thank you." After hearing Hill's explanation, Fury cracked a smile. "The Avengers formation is currently not going very well. Hawkeye and Black Widow are without a doubt easy to be taken care of. The Wizard, Iron Man, and the Hulk each have their own issues. The Hulk cannot be controlled. Before taking out the opponent, he might assault one of his own comrades. Black Widow believes that Iron Man has an impetuous nature and could be very difficult to work with. The Wizard, on the other hand, is excellent in every way. He used to believe that she was too young to be a decent support. She demonstrated good combat skills throughout this time. On the other hand, the Wizard appears to be extremely apprehensive of S.H.I.E.L.D., even going to great lengths to hide their true identity, and they are not at all willing to join. The unintentional finding of Captain America surprised him. Since Captain America satisfies his requirements for Avengers members in every way, and because a captain is definitely required if the Avengers are to be established. Not having the best combat skills is not a requirement for the role of a captain. Rather, you must possess great leadership and tactical command skills. Captain America has fought Hydra before. He is a person with actual military expertise, and he has led his team on numerous occasions, taking down the powerful Hydra at the time. Finally, Captain America gave his life so that all of New York would not be devastated by nuclear bombs. I will take over the matter of Captain America in person. You can find a way to see if you can contact the wizard. I have something to talk to her. Did Coulson already inform you about the hammer that dropped from the sky? Hill had a general idea of why Fury was seeking the wizard as soon as she heard him mention it. Fury nodded. It's not easy to handle that hammer. We've tried everything up to this point, but it won't budge even a millimeter. The most qualified crew that was sent over utilized the most advanced technological tools, and they are unable to identify what it is. I believe magic may be involved. Fury might not have given it much thought if he hadn't met the wizard and witnessed her many unexplainable magics, but now that he has, he feels that some things that science cannot explain may need to be explained by magic. You might have to wait until after midnight if you want to speak with the wizard. There is no simple way for us to get in touch with her. Hill shrugged. You can only visit Manhattan after midnight if you wish to speak with the wizard because her true identity is unknown. Maybe you should ask her for her cell phone number when we next meet. I'm worried that she won't hand it over to us. The wizard is shrewd despite her youth. She must be aware that her genuine identity cannot be concealed if they have her phone number. Chapter 140 Chapter 140 Thor and Loki. Jerry used the broomstick to stop numerous tattooed men from committing crimes in the alley. He then used a telescope to look for crimes. A helicopter that was nearby appeared in his eyes at this precise moment. If you looked closely, you could see Agent Hill seated in the chopper. Jerry rode his broom directly in the direction of the chopper after casting a disillusionment charm on himself. Jerry was first quite irritated with S.H.I.E.L.D. because of his low strength and his concern that S.H.I.E.L.D. would discover his identity and endanger his family. He will therefore make an effort to stay away from them or, at the very least, deceive them about who he is. But he is no longer afraid anymore because he has become stronger, learned more magic, and gained confidence. He can avoid being discovered by S.H.I.E.L.D. by using the Muggle Repelling Charm, the Forgetfulness Charm, the False Memory Charm, and the recently learned Apparition Charm from the Wizard's Handbook. Also, he discovered another kind of Transfiguration Charm in the Morganian Wizard's book. This magic can transform Jerry into anybody, and it also has the power to change others. Simply put, this magic only causes a visible change and leaves the body unaltered as opposed to the Polyjuice Potion, which perfectly alters the entire body. Thankfully, S.H.I.E.L.D. primarily consists of regular humans, and they have no wizards. Thus, a minor alteration is sufficient to mislead them. Now that he hasn't received any red stars, Jerry is a little more hopeful that S.H.I.E.L.D. will locate him, and perhaps he can uncover another significant incident to earn a new wave of red stars. His parallel world's 1-month cooldown ends tonight, and he won't have enough red stars when he comes back there. I didn't expect you to operate a helicopter. Jerry removed his mask before boarding the chopper, displaying an illusioned face of Hermione. Hill said with a smile, as an agent, I naturally know a little more. As an agent, Hill is capable of operating a variety of earthly vehicles, including tanks, planes, and aircraft carriers, in addition to helicopters. Is the boss looking for me? Jerry queried. The boss? Hill's face took on a perplexed expression. When Jerry finally spoke, he explained, I mean Director Fury. Director Fury needs your assistance with something, Hill said with a nod. Jerry's eyes lit up when he heard the words, help is fine, but there must be something in return. Not a big problem. Hill was stunned for a moment, but quickly replied. S.H.I.E.L.D. is still tremendously wealthy as a global organization. This time, instead of dropping Jerry off at the entrance like it did the previous time, the chopper dropped him off at the sea and on a very sizable helicarrier. Could it be the helicarrier in the Avengers? Jerry instantly recalled the helicarrier from the first Avengers movie that could float through the sky as he stared at the helicarrier underneath him. Jerry quickly spotted the one-eyed director of S.H.I.E.L.D. again after following Hill all the way. Well, do you know this thing? Fury was startled to see Jerry fixated on the hammer in the picture and immediately suspected things might be wrong. When Jerry regained consciousness, he put the photograph he was holding down gradually. I do have a knowledge about this hammer. It seems to be recorded in the magic book I studied. Of course, Jerry is aware that this is Thor's hammer. If he recalls correctly, Loki, Thor's younger brother, is the film's antagonist. He summoned a swarm of aliens to attack Earth after opening the Tesseract. Even after seeing the entire film, he was still somewhat confused. He was only aware that Loki had directed an alien invasion of Earth. The invaders were vanquished by Thor, who was wielding the hammer, Tony Stark in his iron suit, and others. After that, Loki was eventually apprehended by his brother and returned to his home. Do you have any idea what this is or how it got to New Mexico? Fury changed his tone to be more serious. Jerry coughed, trying to remember what Thor had done in the Avengers. This appears to be Mjolnir, the hammer that the Norse god by the name of Thor wielded. It is unbreakable and can summon lightning. It roughly looked like this. As for why it fell in New Mexico, I don't know. 1. As Fury heard Jerry's comments, he scowled. Thor, the god of thunder in Norse mythology? Are you sure you're not joking with me? I'm serious. That's what my book says, and the book says that many of the Norse myths are real. Jerry shrugged. After a prolonged period of silence following the words, Fury spoke up again and asked, Jerry, so the magic in Thor's hammer is the reason we can't lift it, right? Perhaps. Jerry appears to have learned about Thor's hammer through his co-workers that Odin has put magic on it. Only Thor or those who Thor's hammer recognizes can be considered to be worthy of wielding it. Do you know how to dispel the magic? To allow our people to bring that Thor's hammer back for analysis. Fury asked more questions. Jerry rolled his eyes and paused to consider his response before saying, I can't guarantee that. I need to go over there and have a look because I'm only a child and haven't studied magic in a while. 1. Of course, he is currently unable to crack Odin's magic. However, Thor cannot be far away, given the appearance of Thor's hammer. He might be able to obtain some red stars if he goes over there. Relying on patrol alone to gain some red stars isn't going to be enough at this point.